Welcome back to Z Coins. Today's video, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting, specifically focusing on the 1967 Lincoln 1-cent penny. You might be surprised to learn that this little coin, which might be sitting unnoticed in your change jar, could actually be worth much more than just a single cent. We'll explore the history behind this coin, why it has become a topic of interest among collectors, the key factors that influence its value, and the current market prices you can expect in today's coin collecting community. So let's get started with a little background on the Lincoln penny itself. The Lincoln 1-cent coin was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was the first United States coin to feature a real historical figure. The original version featured Lincoln's bust on the obverse, or front, of the coin with the words "In God We Trust" at the top, "Liberty" to the left, and the minting year to the right. The reverse side originally featured two wheat ears, which later changed in 1959 to the Lincoln Memorial design, marking the 150th anniversary of his birth. Now focusing specifically on the year 1967, it's important to understand the historical context. During this period, the United States Mint temporarily stopped placing mint marks on coins. This was part of an effort to discourage coin hoarding, which had become a problem during the coin shortage of the early 1960s. So if you look closely at a 1967 penny, you'll notice that it lacks the small letter indicating whether it was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. All 1967 pennies were struck without a mint mark, regardless of the location they were produced. Over 3 billion Lincoln cents were struck in 1967, with more than 900 million coming from the Philadelphia Mint alone. Because of this massive mintage, most 1967 pennies are considered common. However, there are certain variations and high-grade examples that can command significant value in the collector's market. Let's talk about what makes a 1967 penny potentially worth more than face value. First and foremost is the condition of the coin. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, flawless example. A 1967 penny in poor or circulated condition is typically only worth its face value or slightly above, perhaps a few cents to $1 depending on the buyer. But if you have a 1967 penny in uncirculated or mint state condition, things start to get interesting. Coins graded MS-65 or higher are highly sought after, and their value can jump considerably. Another factor that can increase the value of a 1967 penny is an error or variety. Error coins are mistakes made during the minting process, and they are often highly prized by collectors. Some 1967 pennies have been found with double die errors, where the image appears doubled due to a misalignment during the striking process. These can be seen most often on the date, the lettering, or Lincoln's profile. A strong double die error from 1967 can bring in anywhere from $50 to several $100 depending on the severity and condition. Other errors to look out for include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the planchet or coins struck on the wrong planchet altogether. For example, a 1967 penny struck on a dime planchet or with a clipped planchet can bring substantial value in auctions or private sales. These types of errors are rare but very desirable in the numismatic world. So how much is a 1967 Lincoln penny worth today in the current market? For an average circulated example, the value might only be 1 to 3 cents. For an uncirculated example in mint state condition, the value can range from $5 to $30. A high-grade MS-67 red penny has been known to sell for over $100 at auction. And if you are lucky enough to have a rare error coin, the value could climb into the hundreds or even thousands depending on the error type and grade. Collectors also consider the color of the penny. Pennies are categorized as red, red-brown, or brown depending on how much original mint luster remains. A red designation means the coin has retained 95% or more of its original copper color, which is more desirable and valuable than a brown penny that has toned or oxidized over time. So what should you do if you think you have a valuable 1967 penny? First, examine the coin closely under a good light. Look for any obvious errors, doubling, or unusual features. Then consider getting the coin professionally graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. Having a certified grade adds legitimacy and increases its resale potential. You can also compare your coin to images online from reputable coin collecting sites or consult a local coin dealer for a hands-on evaluation. As we wrap up this video, remember that coin collecting is not only a potential way to make money, but also a journey through history. Each coin tells a story, from the designs chosen to the errors made and even the reasons behind mass production changes. The 1967 Lincoln penny may not be rare in numbers, but hidden gems can always be found if you take the time to look. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful or interesting, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos on rare coins, US currency history, and collectible treasures. Drop a comment below if you've come across a 1967 penny in your own collection or if you have a story about a rare find. We are diving deep into a little copper coin that might just be sitting in your pocket or piggy bank right now. The 1978 Lincoln 1-cent penny. It is small, but it could be worth more than you think. So grab a drink, relax, and stick around as we explore the story behind this coin, its historical significance, and its surprising market value today. Let us start with the basics. The 1978 Lincoln penny is part of a series that began in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This coin replaced the Indian head cent, and it was the first regular-issue American coin to feature a real historical person. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln penny originally featured wheat ears on the reverse side. That design stayed until 1958, but by 1978 the reverse of the penny featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to commemorate Lincoln's 150th birthday. So when you look at a 1978 penny, you are seeing Lincoln on the front and the memorial building on the back. Interestingly, if you look closely at the reverse under magnification, you can even spot a tiny seated statue of Lincoln between the columns of the memorial. That is right, a portrait within a portrait. The 1978 penny is made mostly of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc. That is a big deal because just 4 years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of pennies to mostly zinc with only a thin copper coating due to rising metal costs. So all 1978 pennies are still solid copper, and that gives them a bit of extra value just based on the metal alone. Now let us talk mint marks and production numbers. In 1978, there were 3 main versions of this penny based on where they were minted. There is the Philadelphia version, which has no mint mark, and over 5.5 billion of these were made. Then there is the Denver Mint version, which has a small letter D under the date, and over 4.2 billion of those were produced. And finally, there is the San Francisco proof version with an S mark intended mainly for collectors. About 3.1 million proof coins were made that year. So what makes some of these pennies more valuable than others if billions were made, you might be wondering. Great question. The answer lies in condition, rarity, and errors. Let us break that down. First up, condition. Coins that have never been circulated and are still in pristine mint state condition are far more desirable to collectors. These are graded on a 70-point scale, and a coin that grades MS65 or higher could be worth a lot more than face value. A 1978 penny graded MS67 by PCGS, for example, could sell for anywhere between $30 to $200 or more depending on demand. Next, we have error coins. These are the real treasures that collectors hunt for. Some 1978 pennies have off-center strikes, double dies, repunched mint marks, or other unusual features. A double die penny, for example, might show doubling in the date or lettering like Liberty or In God We Trust. These errors can boost the value of a coin dramatically, sometimes reaching hundreds of dollars. The rarer and more dramatic the error, the higher the value. And then we have the proof coins from the San Francisco Mint. These shiny, highly detailed coins were not meant for everyday use and were made in limited numbers. If you have a 1978 proof penny, especially one in perfect deep cameo condition, it could fetch anywhere from $5 to $50 or more based on its grade and appeal to collectors. Now let us talk about copper value. Remember how we mentioned that 1978 pennies are solid copper? With the current price of copper hovering around $4 per pound, a single penny contains about 2 cents worth of copper. That means the melt value is actually higher than face value, although it is still illegal to melt US pennies for their metal content. Still, that copper gives the coin a little added interest for collectors and investors. So what is the takeaway here? Most 1978 pennies you find in pocket change will still be worth just 1 cent. But if you happen to have one in mint condition or with a rare error, you could be holding a coin worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few hundred. Not bad for something you might find at the bottom of a coin jar. Before we wrap up, let us do a quick summary. The 1978 Lincoln penny features the memorial reverse design. It is made of 95% copper. There were over 9 billion made across 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most are common but high-grade coins, and rare error versions can be valuable. Proof coins from the S Mint are also collectible. And because of their copper content, these pennies are already worth more than face value in metal alone. So next time you go through your change, keep an eye out for those 1978 pennies, especially ones that look extra sharp or have something strange about them. You never know. You could have a mini treasure hiding in plain sight. That is it for today's deep dive into the 1978 Lincoln 1-cent penny. If you found this video helpful or interesting, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more coin collecting tips, stories, and hidden treasures from history. Let us know in the comments if you have a 1978 penny or if you have ever found a valuable coin in your change. If you're a coin collector, history lover, or just curious about the value of old coins lying around in your drawer, then you're in the right place. Today we're diving deep into the story of the 1980 Lincoln 1-cent coin, also known as the 1980 Denver penny. What's the history behind it? Could it be worth more than just 1 cent? And how much can you get for it in today's market? Stay tuned, because some of these pennies might be hiding in plain sight and could be worth a lot more than you think. History of the Lincoln penny. Let's start with a bit of background. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it became the first United States coin to feature a real historical person on the obverse. Over time, the reverse design evolved from the wheat ears used from 1909 to 1958 to the Lincoln Memorial starting in 1959. That memorial design lasted until 2008 before being replaced by the Union Shield in 2010. The 1980 penny still features the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse and of course Lincoln's portrait on the front. The 1980 penny. BSICS. The 1980 penny refers to the 1-cent coin minted in Denver that year. It is made primarily of copper, specifically 95% copper and 5% zinc. This composition makes it different from the pennies made starting in late 1982, which were mostly zinc with just a thin layer of copper. Because copper is more valuable as a raw material than zinc, the pre-1982 pennies, including the 1980D, are often saved by collectors and metal hoarders alike. In total, over 5.1 billion 1980D pennies were minted, which is a huge number. That might make you think they're not rare, and for the most part you'd be right. A regular circulated 1980D penny without any special qualities is usually worth its face value, 1 cent. However, there are exceptions, and that's what we're about to get into. Error coins and VRIETIES. Some 1980D pennies are worth more because of minting errors or unique characteristics. These errors can range from simple misalignments to more dramatic and valuable mistakes. One of the most sought-after error types is the double die. This occurs when the coin is struck twice in slightly different positions. Although 1980D double dies are not very common, they can be valuable depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling, especially on the date or the word liberty. Other potential errors include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and repunched mint marks. Each of these errors can add value, sometimes significantly, depending on the condition and uniqueness. Another thing to look out for is coins that are in unusually good condition. A 1980D penny in mint state with a high grade, say MS65 or higher, can fetch several dollars. If it has a red designation, meaning it still has the original bright coppery color from when it was struck, that can increase its value even more. Some of these coins have sold for over $20 or even $50 at auction if they're certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. Scrap copper VLUE. Now, here's something that surprises a lot of people. The metal content in a 1980D penny is actually worth more than 1 cent because of the copper. At today's copper prices, each of these older pennies contains about 2 to 3 cents worth of copper. That's right, even though it says 1 cent on the coin, the metal itself could be worth more. However, melting pennies for their copper is illegal in the United States, so while you can't melt them down for profit legally, they're still collected by many people as a hedge against inflation. Collector interest and market VLUE. So, what's the market value of a 1980D penny today? In circulated condition, most are only worth a penny, maybe 2. But in uncirculated condition, values can range from a few cents up to $10 or even $20. Error coins or high-grade specimens can sell for significantly more. A recent auction saw a pristine 1980D penny with a grade of MS67 red go for over $100. That's a huge jump from face value and shows just how condition and rarity can matter. If you think you've got a valuable 1980D penny, the best way to know is to have it graded by a reputable company. Coin dealers and collectors rely heavily on these grades to determine value. And remember, even a small error or unique feature can turn a common coin into a rare treasure. How to check your SOINS. So what should you do next? Go through your coin jar, your dresser drawers, and any old coin collections you may have. Look for the 1980D mint mark, which is located under the date on the front of the coin. Check the color. Is it a shiny copper red or a dull brown? Examine the coin for any doubling on the letters or numbers, strange shapes, clipped edges, or off-center strikes. You never know what you might find. And if it looks promising, consider showing it to a local coin dealer or sending it to be graded. Wrap up and final THOUGHTS. To sum it all up, the 1980D Lincoln penny might not seem like much at first glance, but under the right circumstances it can be worth a lot more than face value. Whether it's because of its copper content, mint errors, or uncirculated condition, this little coin holds both history and hidden value. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It's like treasure hunting in your own pocket change. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more videos on rare coins and money mysteries. Let us know in the comments if you found any interesting pennies or if you've ever scored big with a coin find. We're diving deep into the fascinating world of coin collecting and specifically focusing on a small yet potentially very valuable coin that many people overlook, the 1982 Lincoln 1-cent penny. That's right, this tiny copper or zinc coin that you might have in your pocket change could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on a few key details. So stay tuned as we explore the history behind this coin, why it's so unique, how to tell if yours is valuable, and what it's worth in today's market. Let's start with the background. The 1982 Lincoln cent might seem like just another ordinary penny at first glance, but it's actually one of the most complex and collectible coins from the modern era. First minted in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln cent has gone through several design changes over the years, but the image of Lincoln on the obverse or head side has remained constant. The reverse design has changed a few times, but in 1982 the reverse still featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been used since 1959. Now here's where things get interesting. In 1982, the United States Mint made a major change to the composition of the Lincoln cent. Due to the rising cost of copper, the Mint decided to transition from the traditional 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy to a cheaper composition of 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating. This change saved the government money, but it also led to a highly unusual situation. Both copper and zinc cents were minted in the same year. That's right, in 1982 there were 7 different varieties of Lincoln cents released into circulation, and this has led to plenty of confusion and excitement in the coin collecting community. So let's break it down. In total, there are 7 distinct types of 1982 pennies, and each one can be identified by 2 main factors. First, the composition, whether the coin is made of copper or zinc, and second, the style of the date. Some coins have what is called a large date and others have a small date. So when you combine those features, you end up with the following 7 types. You have 1982 copper large date, 1982 copper small date, 1982 D copper large date, 1982 zinc large date, 1982 zinc small date, 1982 D zinc large date, and 1982 D zinc small date. Now here's the twist. For a long time, collectors believed there were only those 7 types. But in 2017, something incredible happened. A rare and previously unknown 1982 D small date made of copper surfaced. This coin was confirmed by professional graders and shocked the numismatic community. To date, only a handful of these coins have been found, making it one of the most valuable and sought-after modern pennies out there. One example sold for over $18,000 in auction, proving that even a humble penny can be a treasure if it has the right characteristics. So how can you tell if your 1982 penny is worth something? First, you'll want to determine the metal composition. Copper pennies weigh about 3.11 grams, while the zinc ones weigh closer to 2.5 grams. A simple digital scale can help you make that distinction. If your coin weighs over 3 grams, it's likely copper. Then you'll want to check the date style. Comparing a known small date and large date side by side helps spot the difference. In small date coins, the numbers in the date are more tightly spaced and the 2 in 1982 has more of a curled or rounded appearance. Next, look for the mint mark. Coins with a D were made at the Denver Mint, while those without a mint mark were minted in Philadelphia. The rare 1982 D small date copper is the variety that has attracted the most attention. So if you think you might have one, weigh it carefully, and if it looks like a small date and it's copper, you might want to send it to a professional coin grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. Now let's talk about values. Most 1982 pennies in circulated condition are worth only face value or maybe a few cents above that. But uncirculated examples, especially those with full red color and nowhere, can be worth a few dollars each depending on the variety. Certified examples with high mint state grades can go for much more. A 1982 copper small date in MS65 condition might sell for $15 to $25, while a 1982 D zinc small date in similar condition could go for slightly more if it's rare in that grade. But the true standout is the 1982 D copper small date. In top condition, this variety can bring thousands or tens of thousands depending on demand and scarcity, and the current market coin collectors continue to seek out high-grade examples of all 1982 varieties, and especially the rare ones. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Great Collections have featured several high-profile sales in recent years. If you have a penny from 1982, it's definitely worth taking a closer look because you never know what you might have. So why is this coin so popular among collectors? First, there's the sheer variety, which makes it a fun set to complete. Then there's the mystery and surprise factor, since the 1982 D small date copper wasn't even known to exist until recently. And finally, there's the affordability of entry. Most 1982 pennies are easy to find and cheap to acquire, but the potential to discover a rare variety makes it all the more exciting. To wrap things up, remember this: not all pennies are created equal. That 1982 Lincoln cent in your drawer or coin jar might look ordinary, but with a little knowledge and a good scale, you could uncover a hidden gem. If you're serious about collecting, start by sorting your 1982 cents by weight and date style. Learn the differences between the varieties and always keep an eye out for those rare errors or oddities. You never know when a coin worth a single cent could turn into one worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with other coin enthusiasts. Drop a comment below if you've ever found a rare penny or if you're now inspired to go digging through your change. We dive deep into the fascinating world of coins and currency. Today we are talking about a very interesting coin that has captured the attention of collectors and treasure hunters alike: the 1983 D Lincoln penny. At first glance, this might look like just another ordinary copper-colored coin in your change jar, but trust me, there is more to this one than meets the eye. So stick around because we are about to uncover the hidden value behind the 1983 D 1-cent coin and why it might just be worth a lot more than a penny to. Let's start with a bit of background on this coin. The Lincoln cent has been minted since 1909, when it replaced the Indian head penny. The design was created to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it became the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real person. The obverse of the coin shows a right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, while the reverse originally featured 2 wheat ears, later changed to the Lincoln Memorial in 1959. In 1983, the Lincoln cent was part of this same memorial reverse design era. Now let's talk about what makes the 1983 D penny special. First off, the D mint mark means it was struck at the Denver Mint. Over 6.4 billion of these coins were made, which sounds like a huge number, and it is. But what makes this coin particularly interesting is the material change that happened just 1 year prior in 1982. You see, before 1982 pennies were made mostly of copper, but starting in mid-1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition to a much cheaper zinc core with only a thin copper plating. This was due to the rising cost of copper. So in 1983, all pennies were supposed to be struck on the new copper-plated zinc planchets. However, there have been some discoveries that throw a wrench into that. A small number of 1983 pennies, both with no mint mark and with the D mint mark, have been found struck on copper planchets rather than zinc. These rare errors happened when leftover copper planchets from before 1982 were accidentally used by the mint. These are known as transitional errors, and they are extremely rare and extremely valuable. So how can you tell if your 1983 D penny is worth more than face value? Well, there are a few things you need to look for. First, check the weight. A standard 1983 D penny should weigh about 2.5 grams because of the zinc composition. But if your penny weighs around 3.1 grams, then it might be struck on a copper planchet, which would make it one of those rare transitional errors. You'll need a good digital scale to check this. Another sign to look out for is strong doubling on the lettering or date, which could indicate a double die variety. These errors can also add significant value. Now let's talk about the market. A regular 1983 D penny in circulated condition is usually only worth face value. But if you find one in uncirculated condition, it could fetch a few cents up to $1 or more, especially if graded by a third-party service like PCGS or NGC. However, a verified 1983 D copper transitional error has sold for thousands of dollars at auction. One example sold for over $15,000 because it was authenticated and certified as being struck on a copper planchet. Another example of a high-grade double die variety has sold for hundreds of dollars. And that brings us to why it's so important to pay attention to the small coins in your pocket or coin jar. Because you never know when you might be holding something incredibly rare and valuable. It might just look like an old penny, but it could be a piece of American minting history and a valuable collector's item. Always weigh your coins if you think you have something unusual, and consider having it professionally graded if it shows signs of rarity or error. In terms of current market value, as of today, collectors are still on the lookout for these rare 1983 D transitional error cents. A copper version of the 1983 D penny in mint state condition can be worth between $5,000 and over $20,000 depending on its grade and whether it has been certified. Even a regular 1983 D penny in pristine condition with a mint state grade can sell for several dollars if it has excellent eye appeal and luster. So to wrap this up, the 1983 D Lincoln penny might be a coin you see every day, but with the right characteristics it could be worth a small fortune. Check the weight, inspect for errors, and if you think you've got something special, do not hesitate to have it evaluated by a professional. It just goes to show you that in the world of coin collecting, even a humble penny can be a treasure. Thanks so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe for more deep dives into coins, currency, and collectibles. Let us know in the comments if you've ever found a valuable coin in your change, or if you want us to cover a specific year or variety in a future video. We are diving into one of the most iconic coins in American history, the 1989 D 1-cent penny. If you are a coin collector or just someone who is interested in numismatics, you've probably heard of the significance of the Abraham Lincoln penny. The penny, in its various years and mint marks, has seen many changes throughout history, but the 1989 D is particularly noteworthy. In this video, we will be talking about the history of this coin, its current market value, and why it's important in the world of coin collecting. First, let's talk about the history of the Lincoln penny. The Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it featured a portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and on the reverse, a wheat stalk design. This was the first time a president had appeared on a U.S. coin. In 1959, the design was changed to feature the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, which remained in circulation for decades. Now, the 1989 D 1-cent penny is part of the ongoing series of pennies minted in honor of Abraham Lincoln. The D mint mark signifies that the coin was produced in the Denver Mint, one of the primary locations where U.S. coins are struck. This penny is not particularly rare compared to other coins, but its historical significance and the fact that it was produced as part of the ongoing Lincoln series gives it some value in terms of its physical characteristics. The 1989 D penny is made of copper-plated zinc, which is the standard composition for U.S. pennies minted after 1982. It weighs 2.5 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. Despite being a relatively modern coin, it carries the legacy of Abraham Lincoln and remains an important piece of American numismatic history. Now, you might be wondering about the value of the 1989 D penny. Like most modern pennies, this coin does not have a high intrinsic value because it's still in circulation and is not particularly rare. In fact, you can typically find 1989 D pennies in your pocket change with ease. However, like all coins, its value can fluctuate depending on its condition and whether it is part of a special collection. The value of the 1989 D penny is generally around 1 cent, which is its face value. But if you are looking for more specific market values, it depends on the condition of the coin. For example, if the coin is in circulated condition, it will generally be worth just a few cents. especially if it has some wear and tear from years of use. On the other hand, if the penny is in mint condition, it could be worth slightly more to collectors. Coins that are uncirculated or in near-perfect condition are often more valuable in the world of numismatics. In terms of rare or special versions of the 1989 D penny, there are not any known major varieties or errors that significantly increase the value of the coin. However, it's important to note that errors such as double strikes or misprints can sometimes add value to a coin. So, if you happen to come across a 1989 D penny with an unusual feature, it may be worth having it appraised by a professional numismatist. When it comes to selling your 1989 D pennies, the market value can vary. Most individual coins will only be worth a few cents to $1, but if you have a collection of well-preserved pennies, you may be able to sell them for a higher price as part of a lot or a set. Coins with significant historical appeal, like the Lincoln penny, often have an enthusiastic market among collectors, and this could help drive up the price for a high-quality example. Now let's talk about the broader market for Lincoln pennies. Even though the 1989 D penny might not be worth much on its own, collecting Lincoln pennies can be a fun and rewarding hobby. There are many different years, mint marks, and types of Lincoln pennies to collect, from the early 1909 wheat pennies to the later shield pennies introduced in 2010. The 1989 D penny, while not rare, is still part of that collection and can hold sentimental or historical value for collectors who are trying to complete a series. The appeal of the Abraham Lincoln penny lies in the fact that Lincoln is one of the most revered presidents in U.S. history. He played a pivotal role in preserving the Union during the Civil War and worked tirelessly to end slavery in the United States. His legacy continues to resonate with people across the nation, and this is why the Lincoln penny has remained such a beloved coin in American currency. As for the future market value of the 1989 D penny, it's unlikely that it will see a significant increase in value in the short term. Most coins from this era do not experience the dramatic price increases that older or rarer coins might see. However, as time passes, the penny's historical significance could give it more value, especially to collectors interested in the Lincoln series. The coin is still widely available, and unless you have a coin with a rare minting error or an exceptionally high-grade example, its value is likely to remain relatively low. To sum up, the 1989 D 1-cent penny is a piece of American history, but its value in today's market is primarily limited to its face value unless you happen to find a rare or highly preserved specimen. The penny is not necessarily a goldmine for coin collectors, but it remains an essential part of the Lincoln cent collection and offers a glimpse into American numismatic history. Whether you're a seasoned coin collector or just someone who wants to learn more about the 1989 D penny, it's clear that this coin holds more than just monetary value. It's a symbol of the nation's past and the legacy of one of its most influential presidents. So, the next time you come across a 1989 D penny in your change, take a moment to appreciate its history and the role it plays in the rich tapestry of American coinage. Thank you for watching, and make sure to hit the like button if you found this video helpful. Subscribe for more content on rare coins and their history. If you have any questions or want to share your thoughts, leave a comment down below. We have something really interesting to talk about: the 2000 D Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny. If you're a coin collector or just curious about the history and value of this specific penny, you're in the right place. We're going to dive deep into the history of this coin, its significance, and what it could be worth in today's market. So, let's get started. The 2000 D Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny is a coin that might seem like just another penny at first glance, but it actually has a lot of historical significance and potential value. Let's first start with the basics. The penny, often referred to as a cent, has been a staple of American currency for over 2 centuries. It's the smallest denomination of U.S. currency, but it carries a lot of history behind it. In 2000, the United States Mint issued a special series of pennies to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the release of the original Lincoln Memorial design, which had been in circulation since 1959. The penny you're likely familiar with, the one with the image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, was replaced in 2009 with a new series of pennies to commemorate Lincoln's life. But we're focusing on the 2000 D version today, so let's dig into what makes this penny so special. The D in 2000 D refers to the mint mark. Mint marks are tiny letters stamped on coins to indicate which U.S. mint facility produced them. In this case, the D stands for the Denver Mint, one of the two U.S. mint facilities responsible for striking coins at the time. The other facility is the Philadelphia Mint, but for this specific penny, the mint mark is crucial to its rarity and potential value. The penny features the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, or front, designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner. This image has been used on the penny since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. The reverse of the 2000D penny features the Lincoln Memorial, which was used as the reverse design from 1959 until 2008. This design, however, was replaced in 2009 with a series of designs showcasing different aspects of Lincoln's life and legacy. But in 2000, it was still in USD.SO. How much is this coin actually worth today? Well, the answer depends on several factors, including the coin's condition, rarity, and demand from collectors. For the vast majority of 2000D pennies, they're still only worth 1 cent, the face value. These coins are quite common, so if you found one of these pennies in your pocket change, you probably don't have a rare or valuable coin on your hands. However, if you find a 2000D penny in exceptional condition, such as one that has been preserved with little to no wear, it could be worth more. Coins are graded on a scale from good to mint state based on their condition. A 2000D penny in mint state condition, meaning it has been carefully preserved and shows no signs of wear, could be worth several dollars, even up to $5 or $10. In some cases, if the coin is well preserved and sought after by collectors, it might fetch a bit more, but it's not likely to reach anything close to hundreds or thousands of dollars. The key to determining the value of any coin is rarity. Since the 2000D penny was produced in large numbers, approximately 20 billion of these pennies were minted. They're not particularly rare. The more common a coin is, the less likely it is to have significant value, no matter how old it is. However, certain varieties or errors can make coins more valuable. One of the most important things to note about the 2000D penny is whether or not it has any rare errors. In some cases, a coin might have a minting error, such as a double die or off-center strike, that makes it unique and more valuable to collectors. For example, some 2000D pennies have been found with double die obverse, meaning that the image of Abraham Lincoln appears to be doubled due to a minting mistake. These errors can make the coin much more valuable, sometimes selling for a few $100s depending on the extent of the error and the condition of the coin. Another factor that could increase the value of your 2000D penny is the overall market demand for pennies or specific types of coins. The coin market fluctuates over time, and while the 2000D penny might not be highly valuable today, that could change in the future as collectors' interests shift or as the coin becomes more difficult to find in good condition. Now, if you're thinking about selling your 2000D penny or just curious about its value, there are a few things you can do to assess it further. First, you should take a close look at its condition. Is it worn out or scratched up from years of circulation? If it's in bad shape, it's probably only worth a few cents. However, if it's well preserved, you might want to have it graded by a professional coin grading service, such as the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service. These services can give your coin a grade, which will help you understand its potential value in the collector's market. Additionally, it's always a good idea to check online auction sites, like eBay, to see what other people are paying for similar coins. Just keep in mind that the final value of your coin can vary depending on factors like the auction's bidding activity and the specific market conditions at the time. In conclusion, the 2000D Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny might not be worth much in most cases, but it's still an interesting coin to learn about, especially if you're a history buff or a coin enthusiast. While it's not a rare or highly valuable coin in general, there are exceptions if you happen to find a unique minting error or a particularly well-preserved specimen. Always remember to check the condition of your coin and consider consulting with a professional if you think you've got something special. We're going to be talking about a fascinating topic for all you coin enthusiasts out there: the Abraham Lincoln 2021-cent penny coin. This particular penny has attracted a lot of attention in recent years due to its unique design, historical significance, and varying values in the market. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just someone interested in learning more about this coin, you're in the right place. We'll dive into its history, the design elements that make it so special, how its value has changed over time, and how much it's worth in today's market. So, grab your magnifying glass, and let's get started. History of the Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny. To understand the significance of the 2020 Abraham Lincoln penny, it's important to first take a look at the history of the 1-cent coin. The U.S. penny has been around for a long time, having first been minted in 1793. Over the years, it has undergone many changes in design, size, and composition. The most notable change occurred in 1909, when the U.S. Mint introduced the Lincoln design. This design featured a portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, on the obverse or front of the coin. Now, let's fast forward to 2020. The Abraham Lincoln 2020 penny came with some unique features that set it apart from earlier issues. In 2020, the U.S. Mint released a new series of pennies to mark the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. This series included two different reverse designs, which are the backsides of the coin. One of these designs features the traditional Lincoln Memorial, but the other introduces a fresh look. This new reverse design, which was first issued in 2019 and continued into 2020, depicts a new image of Lincoln's life that includes an image of Abraham Lincoln sitting on a log cabin. This design is intended to commemorate Lincoln's humble beginnings in Kentucky, showcasing his connection to the land and his rise from poverty to one of the most important figures in American history. The 2020 reverse design. The reverse of the 2020 penny features the famous Union Shield design, which was first introduced in 2010. The Union Shield features a large shield in the center, with 13 stars representing the original 13 colonies. The shield symbolizes Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War and the preservation of the Union. Above the shield is the word E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, which represents the unity of the country. It's important to note that the design changes of the 2020 Lincoln penny aren't as dramatic as those seen on earlier versions, but they still hold historical and symbolic significance. Lincoln's legacy is honored on this coin in both artistic and meaningful ways, and this is why it's garnered so much attention from collectors and numismatists alike. Rarity and value of the Abraham Lincoln 2020 penny. Now, let's talk about the value and rarity of the 2020 Abraham Lincoln 1-cent penny. As most of you may know, the value of a coin can be influenced by a variety of factors, including its rarity, condition, and demand among collectors. The 2020 penny is still in circulation, so it isn't considered rare in the sense that there are few of them. In fact, most of the pennies you'll find from 2020 are still in regular circulation, and you'll likely find them in your pocket change or at your local bank. However, just because a coin is still in circulation doesn't mean it doesn't have value. In fact, certain 2020 pennies may be worth more than their face value, especially if they have special qualities that make them stand out. For example, some collectors are looking for 2020 pennies in mint condition or with certain errors, such as double die or off-center strikes, which can increase their value significantly. So, if you have a 2020 penny that looks different or has a unique feature, it's worth taking a closer look. Mint marks and error coins. Let's talk about mint marks. Mint marks are small letters found on the obverse of coins that indicate where they were minted. The most common mint marks for U.S. coins are D for the Denver Mint, S for the San Francisco Mint, and P for the Philadelphia Mint. For the 2020 Abraham Lincoln penny, you'll likely find D or P mint marks, and some collectors are particularly interested in specific mint marks based on the rarity of the mintage. In addition to mint marks, certain error coins can be quite valuable. Error coins are coins that were mistruck during the minting process, leading to features like double strikes, off-center strikes, or even blank planchets. These types of errors are quite rare, and if you happen to come across a 2020 penny with an error, you could be sitting on a valuable piece of history. Some rare error coins can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the type of error and the coin's condition. Current market value. So, what is the current market value of the 2020 Abraham Lincoln penny? As of today, the regular 2020 pennies in circulation are still worth just 1 cent. However, as we mentioned earlier, there are several factors that can influence the value of a specific penny. If you have a 2020 penny that is in mint condition or has an interesting error, it may be worth more to collectors. Uncirculated 2020 pennies, especially those with the D or S mint marks, may be worth anywhere from 10 to 25 cents, depending on their condition. If you find a rare error coin or a coin with a low mintage, it could fetch a higher price. For example, A 2020 penny with a double die error or an off-center strike could be worth anywhere from $50 to $100, or even more, depending on the rarity and quality of the error. Of course, coin values fluctuate over time based on market demand, so it's important to keep an eye on the current trends. You can always check online auction sites or numismatic marketplaces for the latest values and offers for your coins. If you're thinking of selling or buying rare coins, it's always a good idea to consult with a professional numismatist or coin dealer who can give you expert advice on the value of your collection. In conclusion, the Abraham Lincoln 2021 cent penny is more than just a simple coin. It represents an important part of U.S. history, honoring the legacy of one of America's greatest presidents. While most of these pennies are still in circulation and worth their face value, certain 2020 pennies with minting errors or in exceptional condition could be worth more to collectors. If you're a coin collector or just curious about the value of your change, always keep an eye out for those special pennies that might be hiding in your pocket. Whether you're looking to add to your collection or simply curious about the historical significance of the Abraham Lincoln penny, there's a lot to appreciate about this little coin. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found this video interesting or helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more coin-related content. And remember, always check your change. You never know what treasures you might find. Until next time, happy collecting.